It all began when my 18F spoiled older sister, Ashley, 24F, decided to move in with her new boyfriend, Brad, 26M. To be honest, Ashley and I had never gotten along well. Ashley was the type of person who always wanted to be the center of attention, and she expected everyone to cater to her every whim. I, on the other hand, was more relaxed, the type of person who preferred peace and quiet. But there was never peace or quiet when Ashley was around. As a child, I remember trying so hard to be her friend and get along with her, but she always pushed me away. She had a sense of entitlement, as if the world revolved around her, which was exhausting. Our relationship did not improve with age. In fact, it got worse. Ashley always had to be the center of attention, and I was tired of it. So, I kept as much distance from her as possible. We were polite, but there was no love between us. Brad showed up next. He was a typical smooth talker, charming, self-assured, the kind of guy who could make people like him without even trying. At least that is how he appeared to my parents. They were instantly drawn to him. They looked at him as if he could not do anything wrong. He always said the right things and did just enough to give them the impression that he was a great guy, and he was respectful as well as courteous when they were around. But I could see right through him. I knew Brad was trouble from the moment he moved in. Yes, he moved into our house, with our parents. There was something about how he carried himself, this arrogance, that bothered me. He pretended to be superior to everyone else, as if we were fortunate to have him around. The worst part, however, was how he treated me. Initially, he did not act rudely. Instead, he made insensitive remarks that were dismissive without being obvious enough for my parents to notice. Things like, well, I suppose some people are just happy being average, or not everyone is destined to be successful. It was clear that he thought I was beneath him. I could have easily ignored it if it had only been a snide remark, but it was not. His attitude became increasingly condescending over time, and it seemed as if every conversation we had was an opportunity for him to diminish me. He made fun of my job, my hobbies, and even my friends. And Ashley? She loved it. She found it hilarious. She would sit there with a smug expression on her face, laughing at his little jabs as if they were the funniest thing in the world. It was infuriating. At first, I tried to let it go. I did not want to cause any problems, especially because I knew my parents adored him. I figured it was not worth fighting over. However, the more I attempted to ignore it, the more he pushed. It appears he was trying to see how far he could push me before I lost it. And one day I did. It was on one of the weekends. We were all in the kitchen, including Brad, Ashley, and my mother. My father was out running errands, so it was just the four of us. I am not even sure what the argument was about. It was probably something stupid, as most of Brad's arguments are. He made one of his typical smug remarks, and I had had enough. I confronted him, telling him he was an awful person and that I was tired of how he treated me. I was not screaming or anything, just gently stating the facts. Brad took it poorly. He got out of his chair and stormed over to me, getting right in my face. He was taller than me, and he used his height to intimidate me, towering over me as if daring me to push back. But this time, I was not going to back down. I stood firm, telling him to back off and that he had no right to treat me like garbage in my own home. That was when it happened. He shoved me out of the blue. Hard. My heart raced as I stumbled back and landed on the counter. I was stunned for a moment and could not react. I could not believe he had touched me. I looked over to my mother, expecting her to say something or defend me. But she did not. She just stood there, silently, as if nothing had happened. What about Ashley? She was grinning. She appeared to be enjoying the entire experience, as if it were all a sick game to her. I could not believe what was happening. I had just been assaulted in my own home, and my family was acting as if nothing had happened. I raised my voice, telling Brad that he was not allowed to touch me and that he had overstepped his boundary. But rather than offering an apology, he became more insistent. He started yelling at me, accusing me of provoking him for weeks and causing all the problems in the house. He made it sound like I was a toxic presence, a troublemaker who was stirring the pot and making his life miserable. And the worst part? My parents accepted his word for it. My mother sighed and rubbed her temples, as if she were tired of dealing with me. She told me that I was exaggerating the situation and that I should stop worrying so much about it. I had just been physically shoved, and she said I was exaggerating? How could my mother side with him instead of me? Ashley, of course, spoke up, supporting Brad. She claimed I had always been jealous of her and had tried to sabotage her relationship with Brad from the beginning. She portrayed me as the bad guy, accusing me of causing all the trouble in the house. And my parents trusted her. They believed them both. That night, My parents sat me down and advised me that it might be best if I took a break from living at home. They claimed that the tension between me and Brad was so intense that it made living in the house unbearable for everyone else. They did not want to kick me out, but they thought it would be best if I stayed with a friend for a while to calm things down. I could not believe what I heard. They chose Brad over me. I was their daughter, and they were supporting a 26-year-old grown man, who was dating their 24-year-old daughter, and living with them, and they had known him for less than a year. I tried to argue and show them how insane this was, but they would not listen. In their opinion, I was the problem. I was the one causing all the chaos. So, I packed my bag and left. I spent the next few days with a friend, hoping that my parents would reconsider. However, they did not. I went weeks without hearing from them. Not a single text or phone call. They treated me as if I no longer existed. During those weeks, I had plenty of time to think. I began to piece together what had happened, including how Brad and Ashley had turned my parents against me. In retrospect, everything made perfect sense. Brad had played the long game, gradually chipping away at me, making little jabs here and there until he could paint me as the bad guy. And Ashley? She was delighted to help. She had always resented me, believing that I had been the favorite growing up. She had finally found a way to get back at me, and she was enjoying every second of it. I was hurt, angry, and a little confused. How could my parents not have seen what was going on? How could they possibly be so blind? However, after a while, I stopped caring. I was not going to waste any more energy on them. It was up to them whether they wanted to believe me or Brad and Ashley. I was not going to fight for a spot in a family that obviously did not want me. Then, just over 2 months later, my mother unexpectedly showed up at my friend's house. She was frantic, her hair was tangled, and she did not look like she had slept in days. She did not ask how I was or apologize for kicking me out. Instead, she began talking about how I should sue Brad for the assault. It seemed that things had begun to fall apart between him and Ashley. He had begun to show his true colors, and my parents were finally seeing him for who he was. My mother claimed that Brad and Ashley had been manipulating them from the beginning, that they had tricked my parents into turning against me. Now she wanted me to take legal action against Brad to make things right. I could not believe what I heard. After everything they had put me through, including kicking me out and siding with Brad, they expected me to swoop in and save the day? That was absurd. I could not help but laugh right in her face. I told her she had a lot of nerve coming here after all of this and expecting me to clean up their mess. I was not interested in being their savior. If they wanted to dig themselves a hole with Brad and Ashley, that was their problem. I was not going to be the one to help them get out of it. They had made their decision, and now they could deal with the consequences. My mother appeared to be at a loss for words, as if she had not anticipated my rejection. She probably expected me to jump at the chance to get back at Brad for what he did. But honestly, I was way beyond that. They had finally realized they were wrong, but I was not going to suddenly step in and save them because I had already spent months dealing with the fallout from their betrayal. They made their decision when they kicked me out, and now they had to deal with the consequences. After my mother left, I sat there for a while, trying to make sense of everything. Part of me felt at ease as if I had finally received some closure. My parents had finally seen Brad for who he was, and they were paying the price for supporting him. But another part of me was still angry and hurt. How could they have been so blind? How could they have dismissed me like I was insignificant and taken his side with such ease? And now, when things had gone wrong, they expected me to fix everything for them. That was ridiculous. I could not stop thinking about the moment they kicked me out. I was deeply hurt and shocked, and I spent weeks trying to figure out why Brad had been chosen over me and what went wrong. But now I realized it did not matter what I did or did not do. It was about them. They did not want to face the truth. They did not want to admit their mistake. So, they had taken the easy way out by believing Brad and Ashley because it was easier than admitting they were wrong. I broke off every connection with my parents in the weeks that followed. I did not answer their calls or texts. I needed space and time for myself. I was not ready to forgive them, and I did not think I would ever be. They had hurt me in ways that I had no idea could be repaired. Family was supposed to be there for you, to have your back in any situation, and protect you no matter what. But mine had thrown me under the bus without a second thought. Brad and Ashley eventually broke up, according to what I have heard. It seems that Brad's actual nature became too much even for her to deal with. My parents had to rebuild their relationship with her on their own, and based on what I have heard, their relationship was strained. I could not help but feel at ease that they were finally facing the consequences of their actions. However, it was an empty victory. The damage had already been done, regardless of what happened between them and Brad. They had chosen to support him over me, and I was not sure I could ever get over that. Life is going on, as it does. I am moving on with my life, focusing on my job, my friends, and the people who care about me. I do not need my parents' approval or their validation anymore. I had spent too long trying to please them, trying to be the good daughter, and for what? In the end, it did not matter. They chose someone who was not even family, over me. So, I decided to stop trying to live up to their expectations. I was done. But every now and then, I remember that day in the kitchen, when Brad shoved me and my family did nothing. I remember my mother arriving at my door, frantic and desperate, pleading with me to save them from the disaster they had caused. And I wonder if I was wrong to turn her away. Should I have stepped in and helped them, despite everything they had done to me? Maybe if I had helped them, things would have been different. Maybe I could have fixed my relationship with my parents, found a way to move on from the pain and betrayal. But maybe not. Some things are too broken to be repaired, and sometimes walking away is the only option. But I still wonder if I was wrong to laugh in my mother's face. Despite everything they had put me through, should I have been a bigger person? Ida for not helping my parents when they were in need? Update 1. It has been about 3 months since my family's situation went south. After I left, I hoped that things would improve or that my parents would see what they had done. But none of that happened. My mother did show up once, trying to persuade me to help them after everything went wrong with Brad, but I laughed in her face. I have not heard much from them since, and honestly, that is fine with me. It is shocking how quickly they turned their backs on me, and while it still hurts, I have had a lot of time to think about it. It was tough in the first few weeks after I left. I kept going over everything again in my mind, trying to decide what went wrong or whether there was anything I could have done differently. Was there anything I could have said or done to convince them of my point of view? But the more I considered it, the more I realized it was not my fault. I had been pushed over the edge, and no one noticed until it was too late. Brad was a nightmare, Ashley encouraged it, and my parents simply let it happen. I was tired of being treated as if I did not matter. So, when I walked out, I did not just leave the house, I left behind years of feeling like I was not good enough for them, like I had to prove my worth all the time, even in my own home. Staying with a friend saved my life. They were very helpful in clearing my mind and putting things into perspective. It was not easy, but I needed that time to figure out who I was without constantly comparing myself to Ashley or dealing with Brad's toxic behavior or trying to constantly please my parents. It felt like I could finally breathe without constantly walking on eggshells. My friend kept reminding me that I deserved better, and I eventually came to believe it. Some mutual friends informed me that Ashley and Brad's relationship was not going well. Apparently, after I left, he began to show his true colors, and Ashley realized he was not as perfect as she thought. They fought a lot, and it was only a matter of time before everything fell apart. Part of me felt vindicated, as if everyone was finally seeing what I had been going through. But another part of me felt tired. I did not want to feel obligated to celebrate another person's misery, even if they had caused me pain. I have stopped caring so much. I threw myself into work and socializing with people who genuinely valued me. I became closer to my friends' family, who treated me better than my own family ever did. It was refreshing to be around people who did not expect me to prove myself and did not make me feel like I was competing for their approval. They simply liked me for who I was, no strings attached. Update 2. Hello. It has been a month and a half since the last update, and Ashley hit me up unexpectedly. I did not expect that at all. I assumed she would be too proud to admit anything went wrong. But she sent me a long message, apologizing for everything. She claimed she had been jealous of me for years, which clouded her judgment. She admitted that Brad had manipulated both her and our parents, and she apologized for siding with him and treating me so poorly. I was not sure how to feel about it. On the one hand, hearing her admit that I was correct all along was quite satisfying. However, it felt like it was a little late. Her apology did not change what had happened, neither did it erase years of resentment and the way she and Brad treated me. Ashley told me that her and Brad's relationship had gotten worse. He apparently began to show his true colors after I left. He was manipulative and mean, as I had warned her. She said she felt stupid for not noticing it sooner and for turning our parents on me. I could tell she was trying to make things right between us, but I was not sure I was ready for it. Our parents were not doing too well either. Ashley informed me that their relationship with her had been strained since Brad left. They were disappointed and struggled to trust her again. I suppose they were finally realizing they had made a huge mistake in siding with Brad and kicking me out. But even hearing that did not give me much comfort. It felt like it was too late. I have not replied to Ashley yet. I need some time to process everything. Part of me wants to forgive her and move on, while another part of me feels like that would be a big mistake. It was not just the last few months with Brad, it was years of feeling too small, as if I was constantly in Ashley's shadow. Her apology was a start, but it was not enough to fix everything. My parents still are not in touch with me. Ashley told me they were having trouble, but they had not contacted me directly. I was not sure what I would do if that happened. In the meantime, I am still focused on myself. I am doing well at work, meeting new people, and simply trying to live my life without the constant stress of family drama. It is nice to be free, not worrying about what my parents or Ashley think of me. I am learning to be happy on my own, which was something I had not experienced in a long time. If anyone reading this has any advice, I would really appreciate it. I am really lost. I do not know what I should do. Update 3. It has been 6 months since everything went down, and things have changed dramatically. I am still not in contact with my parents, but I have spoken with Ashley quite a few times. We have met up for coffee a few times, and while we are not particularly close, it has been helpful to talk things through. She has been working on herself, and I can tell she genuinely wants to be a better person. She has admitted to many of her mistakes, and while I am not ready to completely forgive her, I appreciate the effort she is making. Ashley's relationship with our parents is still rocky. They have been working hard to rebuild their trust in her, but it is taking time. Apparently, my mother is still upset about how everything went down, and my father is more detached than ever. It is strange to think about how much has changed since Brad entered the picture. He tore our family apart, and even though he is no longer with us, the damage is still there. I am not ready to let my parents back in, but I do not want to carry around this resentment any longer. It is exhausting, and it is keeping me from fully enjoying life. I am not in a rush to reconcile with my parents. If they ever want to apologize or make amends, it is up to them. I have spent far too long trying to meet their expectations, and I am done. I am living life on my own terms, and it feels good. I have grown a lot in the last few months, and I am happy with the person I am becoming. I guess I really hope things eventually improve, but maybe not yet. I will give this as much time as it takes and needs. But, yeah, I am hoping for the best. Update 4. It has been about 8 months since everything started with Brad, Ashley, and my parents. Honestly, I thought things were starting to calm down. But, as life often does, it threw me another curveball. I unexpectedly received a letter. Not a text message or an email, but a real letter that looked like it was from the 1990s. It was from my father. At first, I assumed it was just another attempt to get me to talk to them, or perhaps another request for me to resolve issues with the family. However, I was taken aback when I opened it. The letter was not what I expected. It was not an apology at all. Instead, my father accused me of being responsible for everything falling apart. He said that Ashley spiraled out of control and broke up with Brad because I would not be a part of the family. He went so far as to say that if I had tried harder to get along with Brad and Ashley from the start, none of this would have occurred. He claimed that I had turned my back on the people who loved me and that it was selfish of me to have left them. I was shocked by what I was reading. He completely ignored Brad's toxic behavior, his manipulation, and the fact that I was physically assaulted in my own home. In his opinion, I was the bad guy. It was as if he was rewriting history to make me a bad guy, and I could not understand it. He still felt it was my fault, even after all that went down, including them throwing me out and siding with Brad over their own daughter. The entire thing made me sick. I had been doing well and moving on with my life, but this letter reminded me of all the anger and frustration I had worked so hard to overcome. I felt as if I had fell back, as if all my progress over the previous months had vanished in an instant. I kept thinking about the letter for several days, rereading it and becoming increasingly upset each time. My first thought was to write back and tell him off, to set the record straight once and for all. But, after calming down a little, I realized that interacting with him would most likely just drag me back into their drama. I had an unexpected run-in with Ashley a few days after I received the letter. We were both at the grocery store and had no idea the other was going to be there. It was awkward, to say the least. She asked if I had received the letter, and I replied yes. She appeared uncomfortable, as if she knew what our father had said was not fair. She did not defend him, and she also did not apologize for him. She just sort of stood there awkwardly for a moment before asking if I would want to get coffee with her. I agreed. I was not sure what I expected from that conversation, but part of me wondered if Ashley had anything to say that could explain why our father was still so fixated on blaming me. When we met, Ashley seemed different, as if she was trying to be more genuine. As usual, she talked about how awful things had gotten between her and Brad just before their breakup. But then she hit me with something completely unexpected. She admitted that Brad convinced her to manipulate our parents during their relationship. He had made her believe that the only way to keep him happy was to turn them against me. I just sat there, dumbfounded. She had never genuinely accepted her part in the entire situation before, until now. She was not just a bystander, she actively worked to make my life difficult, all because Brad had deceived her into believing it was necessary. She cried, saying she regretted everything and would do anything to make things right. I was not sure what to say. To some extent, it was relieving to eventually hear her accept accountability for what she did. However, it did not make up for all the pain and betrayal I had went through. I stopped believing in my family, not just Ashley. As I am writing this now, I do not really know how to react to anything. Everyone in my family chose Brad over me. Ashley knew what she was doing, and she had always been one of those people who would sacrifice their lives to please their partner, so I had no expectations from her at all. But my parents believed Brad, and they chose to kick me out, and they are still blaming me while siding with him. Even though Ashley finally figured out that he is toxic, my parents are still on his side. I am tired of all this family drama, I really want to get out of all this. Update 5, it has been about a year since the whole situation with my family began, and to be honest, I am still kind of caught in the middle of it. On the one hand, I have made some significant progress in moving forward with my life. I got a promotion at work and have been spending time with new people who genuinely care about me. It has been refreshing to have a support system that does not carry the same baggage as my family. But, on the other hand, there is still a huge, unresolved conflict between me and my parents. After my father's last letter, I decided not to respond. I figured there was no use in engaging into a back and forth fight that would just make me feel more hurt. Instead, I have been focusing on setting boundaries and making it obvious that I am not going to allow them drag me back into the toxic situation. However, things have not been easy. Every now and then, I receive a message from my mother, and it is evident that she is struggling with our distance. She has not entirely accepted responsibility for what happened, but I believe she is beginning to recognize that they made a big mistake. She will send vague, guilt-ridden messages like, "I miss you," or "Things aren't the same without you around," but never a genuine apology. It is irritating because I know she wants to improve things, but she is unwilling to face the real issue. Ashley, though, has been making more of an effort to stay in touch. We have met out a few times since our coffee chat, and she has been very upfront about how much therapy has helped her understand the damage that she did. She is attempting to restore our relationship, but it is a slow process. I told her I was not ready to completely forgive her yet, and she said that she understood. Still, I can tell she is trying, which means something. I have also been focusing on letting go of the anger I have been holding inside. There are still days when I feel like I have not made any progress, and I wake up unhappy or angry about all that has happened. However, those days are becoming less common. I am learning to take things day by day and focus on what makes me happy. I have taken up new interests like as painting and yoga, as well as increased my travel. Getting out of my comfort zone and visiting new places has given me a new point of view. It serves as a reminder that there is much more to the world than the drama shells my family built. Looking back, I see that breaking off contact with my parents, at least for the time being, was the best thing I could have done for myself. It has allowed me to grow and discover who I am without constant criticism or disappointment. And, to be honest, I like the person I am becoming. I am more confident and independent, and I am beginning to believe that I deserve better than how they treated me. I have no idea what the future holds for me and my family. Maybe one day we will reconcile, or maybe not. But for the time being, I am okay with the current situation. I have realized that I cannot control how they behave, but I can control how I react. And right now, I am choosing to focus on myself and the people in my life who make me happy.